Hello, gentlemen. It is Pastor Chronic here to drop some holy news on those that have ears to listen and eyes to see. I will speak plainly in this video. The church has been subverted. American churches, in particular, have been broken and bent to fit the will of the weak and the wicked. They hope to appeal to men and women based on emotion. There are churches led by female pastors, a blasphemy in and of itself. There are LGBT affirming, genital chopping, transformer celebrating pastors who wear the garb of God with gleeful faces as they spit on the religion and culture of Christianity. These false prophets' own bodies are a testament to their weakness. Their chubby, fat-filled faces, their unformed limbs, the muscle that they use the most is their esophagus. These disgusting aggregates of adipose and soy do not worship the same God as Christians of old. They worship the false gods of BLM, of LGBT, and of trans fats. Their worship to false gods yields the fruit of destruction we are forced to harvest today.
Black Lives Matter, we bless this banner.
But more than the outright infestation of estrogen-laced demons, there has been a great weakening of church leaders and pastors across the West. How am I to take a pastor seriously with a weak body? He waddles up to the stage, wielding a decrepit temple that is a shameful sight to behold. The average pastor in the U.S. goes to McDonald's more than he goes to the gym. Pathetic. What a way to defile God's holy temple he gave you. The average pastor, he married a non-virgin. His daughters are the town's bicycles, like a damn timeshare. I knew a pastor whose daughter dumped her betrothed a month before the wedding because their, quote, energies didn't vibe, unquote. Now in the comment section, let me know where in the holy book it states that a Thodim must have the correct energy match with her man to marry, unquote. Now she is a physical trainer getting rammed through by every guy that puts 3 plates up on each side of the bench. A travesty. Fertility and potential wasted because her father, a man of God, trusted her emotional, feminine state with the responsibility over her sexuality. And she failed. She did fail indeed. By the good book, she's not worth being a wife. She can't be a wife. She's not a virgin. And I highly doubt she has been taught that harsh lesson from her man of God father. The church is in crisis. Its membership has been declining at a steady rate for decades now. Yet at the same time, young men and women everywhere complain of having no purpose, no goal in life. Depression is soaring. Self-deletion is soaring. People are losing their souls to consumerism. So what gives? This is the problem. The church, Christians, and Christian culture has sacrificed its holy laws and scriptures to appease women. They preach forgiveness all day, but not virtue, not self-restraint. They slander and slander and slander men, all for the weak seal-like clapping of the fat, entitled barren whores that line its pews. I have heard horror stories of effeminate pastors trying to play the matchmaker between single mothers and hardworking young Christian men. All they preach is forgiveness. It's like the girls in church know that they can do anything because the Lord of their sent pastors will forgive them. Well, unfortunately, men don't have to look over your ankle-biting bastards and busted hymens in courtship. Strong Christian men deserve strong Christian women for the purpose of courtship and marriage. That means no bastards, no previous sexual partners, and no debt. The churches seem to forget that the holy role ordained to women was to be mothers, was to be submissive. But since the weak pastors don't want to make their female flock uncomfortable, they don't preach any of the responsibilities of femininity, and thus let their flocks go astray into Chad and Tyrone's arms. These weak men, weak leaders of the church, yield weak younglings. They encourage weak young women to go to college and find themselves. And then these weak pastors act shocked when their chastity has been wrecked like Tokyo after a firebombing. And they're even more shocked to find that masculine men decide to play the whoremonger instead of waiting around in church for years and years and years to find an old wife out of her youth. The church and feminism share a lot of traits, but they both share ignorance. They ignore and deny the strength of the male sex drive. They seem to think shame will satiate a man's horniness for years and years and years until a reformed born-again virgin has decided to stop fucking heathens to make a family with a strong man of upright morals. Well, that's not happening. Intelligent, hard-working men who read and understand the Bible know not to build a house on a foundation of sand. Once you decide to give your virginity up, and more so, be one of many, many, many men's conquests, your ability to build and maintain a strong family is sand, washed away by the waves of fleeting emotions that dominate your febrile will and pathetic existence. Wise men know not to build houses or families on such sinful sand. Instead, these men will seek women of faith with a foundation of stone, so that their houses won't be blown away by the hormonal winds of Western women. It is in your nature. Here are some examples of what a Western woman will tell her Christian husband. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I want to experience my 20s. I don't think I'm good enough for you. I want to live free and independent, but he abused me. I have to be a boss bitch now. So goes the flimsy excuses for destroying a family by the women of sand. Why would a valuable family-minded man try to build anything with these wretches? They are unholy, ungodly, and as submissive as a 400-pound hog on its way to the Golden Corral buffet line. So is it any surprise that these supposed Christian women can't find any worthy Christian men to marry them? Let me quote from a source. Consider the case of a mainline Protestant woman who has some desire to marry a mainline Protestant man. The average mainline church has about 80 attendees on a Sunday. Of those, about 11 are likely to be under 50, not married and not divorced. Of those 11, 6 or 7 are likely to be women. Let's call it 7. As we stipulated in that scenario centers around a woman. That means for every 7 eligible women, there are 4 eligible men. Unquote. Now, do those 7 Christian women have realistic standards? Do they have standards from God, or are there standards of the world? Do they listen to Walt Disney more than the God of their fathers? He needs to be at least 6 foot, making at least 6 figures, with at least 6 inches below the belt. What's that? That's the 666, aka Devil Chad. Western women with weak constitutions willfully throw away their purity and chastity on the groins of men who have no intention of taking care of them and no intention of siring their children. In short, these women choose their own misery. So like carrots in a stew, let them marinate in it. And marinate they do. In their dusty old eggs and zinc soup, they marinate. But unlike men, women are not satisfied to suffer in silence. Because why would a little Disney princess do that? She has to be saved. And so therefore she screeches to the world, where are all the good Christian men? Where? These females. They can't be saved. In spirit maybe, but not on this earth. Not by us men, and not by those that wish to make strong families. With all that being said, I will now cover the top 10 red-pilled Bible verses about women. Maybe the old, used-up slores of the West can take heed and spread this holy wisdom to their daughters or nieces, if they have any. At the very least, the average feminist woman, with her Prozac-popping lifestyle and barren womb, can serve as an example of the destruction that awaits women who turn their back on men and God. So take heed, my brothers, and listen to the ancient wisdom given to you. The first verse comes from the book of Isaiah. This text includes the writings of several prophets who have had the privilege of watching Jerusalem burn and its people sold into slavery. They witnessed the absolute destruction that the love of wealth had on its people. It reads, Isaiah chapter 3 verse 11, Woe to the wicked! Disaster is upon them. They will be paid back for what their hands have done. Youths oppress my people. Women rule over them. My people, your guides lead you astray. They turn you from the path. When you allow women to rule over you, your path leads to destruction. They will give evil men children, and said bastards will rise to oppress you. How do bastards oppress you today? Well, considering a 10% increase in the percentage of children living in single-parent homes typically leads to a 17% increase in juvenile crime, bastards are the ones attacking, murdering, and raping well-adjusted individuals and their families. Did you just get carjacked by Tiredius? Probably a bastard from a single-mother home. Have your kids been shot up in school by little Johnny? Probably a bastard from a single mother home. And the women rulers. Ooh la la, a majority voting bloc. Vote for policies that directly lead to the propagation of more criminal bastards. They vote to replace you. They vote to have the right to murder children. They vote to spend your money on people that hate you. That is what it is to be ruled by women. But what is the fate of the honest and hard-working feminists that collect degrees like Pokemon cards while their wombs dry up like paint? They will beg and plead to be taken by a man so that their shame will be reduced. The second verse is Isaiah chapter 4 verse 1. In that day 7 women will take hold of one man, saying, We will eat our own bread, wear our own clothing. Only let us be called by your name to take away our reproach. These career-minded feminists will provide their own bread and apparel from the careers they gleefully chose in their youth. But once they get old and the male attention they're used to is reduced, they will gladly share one honorable man between them just so they're not ashamed. They want protection in a strong man's name. These wicked Western whores will get neither. But try to get an old feminist to admit the error of her ways. She won't. She can't. She is the whore of Babylon. The next verse describes the arrogance and solipsism of women who choose the path of the whore. Proverbs chapter 30 verse 20. This is the way of an adulteress. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, I have done no wrong. This is the way of the entitled narcissistic woman. They will change your perception of reality so that they can do no wrong. He abused me. I was raped. These lying women will say anything to pull on a man's heartstrings. This is why back in the day, the testimony of a single woman was not sufficient to punish a man. Compare that to now. We have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of men rotting away inside prison off the word of some lying Western whore. These sinful women refuse to see their disgusting actions as sin. This is why we must punish them, which leads us to the next verse. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 11. If 2 men are fighting, and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by the genitals, you should cut off her hand. Show her no mercy. Now, Deuteronomy was a book written for the Jews in 7th century BC. It's a set of rules for the nomadic, warlike people. Yet still, it shows how one should punish a woman when she enters the arena of men. Punish her like a man. Let us pay attention to the ending. Show her no mercy. If a woman intends to castrate or disable a man via squeezing his testes, she should be shown no mercy. Now, what is the application of this verse when it comes to the legions of white single mothers willfully sending their sons to be castrated? They dress them as girls and declare them to be trans kids. For what? For attention. Should we show them mercy? Many weak pastors would say yes. On a side note, there must have been an epidemic of nut-grabbing Jewish women in the tribe of Judah for Moses to make such a specific rule. Can you guys imagine being a holy leader and saying, "These Yatzkahos are grabbing the family jewels. Take their hands off so they gotta give out stump jobs." Next up is a verse that 99% of husbands and 100% of those unfortunate enough to be married to a feminist can truly relate to. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a bitter woman. Have many of you gone camping? Now, how many of you gone primitive camping? No running water or electricity, out in the woods. That's real camping. It can be a soul-refreshing experience. Being one with nature, listening to streams flowing, birds chirping, the sound of leaves crunching under your feet. Peaceful. Seems refreshing, doesn't it? Like you were meant to be out there in the wild. Now let's compare that to the beautiful sounds from a bitter woman.
Lloyd!
What?
You need to take out the trash! Lloyd! Please put the clothes in the wash! Lloyd! Can you feed your freaking dog? Lloyd!
Make it stop, please make it stop. Truly, this verse from Proverbs is a breath of wisdom from above. So men, excise bitter woman from your life. They add nothing. Moving on, we are arriving at many a man's favorite Bible verse, yet one of the least followed, and I have never heard this preached in a church. Paul wrote to Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. This verse is responsible for more ham-faced feminist outrage than any other verse, in my opinion. Strictly based off the physical pain it causes in the unruly feminist swine, this verse deserves a place on this list. But it also sheds wisdom on the place for loyal Christian women. When a woman submits to her man, the majority of her worldly problems dissipate. Let's see how modern Western women are faring in the job market, exercising authority over men. Quote, more than 1 in 5 women in the United States experiences mental health condition in the past year, such as depression or anxiety. Many mental health conditions such as depression and bipolar disorder affect women more than men, or affect women in different ways than men, unquote. Oh wow, it looks like when you put women in a position where they need to exercise dominance and constantly be surveilling her environment for other threats, they seem to crack under the pressure. More so in a strong family like the one located in the church, it is important that pastoral leadership is not given to females. Want to see why? Did you know that a female pastor is now an OnlyFans content creator? How shameful. How absolutely disgusting. But being a false prophet or a domineering bitch boss isn't the only pitfall women have in modern times. Unfortunately, the more beautiful a woman is, the more likely she is going to leverage that beauty, and most likely puniti, to acquire resources from simps and men that wish to sleep with her. A non-virgin woman that sleeps around is known as an adulterer in the Bible, and they should be called as such. I like to use these phrases to describe women who use their sexuality for gain, or to satisfy their whorish desires. Salute, salor, whore, slut, thought, 304, Thotiana, floozy, thoughtlet, thotum, streetwalker, zinc demon, zinc walker, stank skank, asphalt tramp, harlot, and loose punyeted goosey. That's just to name a few. Now, what is truly shameful is that these women are either unaware of the inherent value of virgin brides, or they are so damn arrogant and sinful that they think despite having their cervixes and vulvas covered in zinc sauce, they are just as valuable to men as a submissive, chaste bride is. That's pathetic how stupid they are. These women willfully throw away their most valuable possession for swine, like instincts, which brings us to the next verse. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 22. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. A beautiful woman without discretion goes to bed with any attractive man. A beautiful woman without discretion gets a job stripping. A beautiful woman without discretion gets an OnlyFans. A beautiful woman without discretion goes to college and gets slammed by frat boys. A beautiful woman without discretion wields power like a man without understanding the consequences. Unfortunately for these mindless animals without discretion, there are women with discretion. And when these two groups are compared, the differences are as noticeable as an Adam's apple on a Decepticon. Let's look at how wise women and foolish women act with our next verse. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 1. The wisest of women builds her house, but the folly with her own hands tears it down. When I read this verse, do you know how I see women tearing down their own house? You know what comes to mind? Divorce. There is nothing that tears a house down and family down than divorce. Quite frequently, both partners expend all of their resources, saved by the family, fighting each other in the family courts. Foolish women will gladly sacrifice $1 million in savings, college funds, future vacations, a comfortable retirement for both parties, in exchange for a speedy divorce and a cool $200,000 payment. But as I stated before, this is the way of an adulteress. She eats and wipes her mouth, destroys her family, and says, "I have done no wrong." These feminist women will quite frankly throw away hundreds of thousands of dollars just to have access to 30% of her husband's life work. She will be free. She will still have her children and a new semblance of financial independence. Her children will suffer, for without a father, there are innumerable costs in the children's psyche and genetics. But these costs, the destruction of her family, it means nothing to these foolish feminist slores, these disgusting wenches of the West. The wisest of women build their house. They cook, clean, maintain the property, raise animals, tend gardens, even work remote from home. Compared to the ungrateful swine churned out by the West, these women are valuable beyond belief, which yields the next verse. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 4. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who shames him is rottenness in his bones. An excellent wife can be the crown of a husband, the one who gives birth to many children and turns a structure into a home. Men will fawn and fawn and fawn over the wife of their youth. She will give him a family. Unfortunately, not many young women are trained to do so. The next verse, Titus chapter 2, verse 4. Train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. Trained? How dare you? We are not dogs to be trained, screeches the feminist woman who lives her life as a man. I'll respond, men must be trained in their profession, no matter how menial. Are you then so arrogant to presume that the duty and job of being a wife requires no training? Such arrogance is a gem of abject foolishness all too commonly found in infertile Western feminist trolls. These women will slander mothers and motherly duties all day, and then when a weak-willed man tries to make them into a wife, he will be shocked at just how incapable they are for the job. You know what we say, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. It appears that in today's day of age of degeneracy, that feminine women, those that are submissive, love children, and understand the value of their chastity, are hated by the manly, obese, feminist demons that infect every corridor of life. These manly women disrespect and degrade true femininity at any chance they get. They must make femininity low value so that when they decide to drop the suit and doll up, it's an easy transition for them. Do not trust these women pretending to be men. They are snakes, a curse upon any reasonable man. The last verse is from King Solomon, the wisest person to ever live. He describes women who use their sexuality to control men as such. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 26. I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare, whose heart is a trap and whose hands are chains. The man who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner she will ensnare. Worse than death are the women who will convince you that their love is true, only to backstab you, to betray you and leave you at your lowest. The intimate bonds you create with them via sex are truly one-sided. How many of you know a man who ended himself after being betrayed and dumped by a Western woman, by a woman who is a snare, one that is incapable of loving you? She doesn't care about you. She doesn't love you. She is using you. She was never yours, only your turn. How many poor unguided brothers have ended their lives, snuffed out their potential over the loss of love, but they lost nothing. They didn't lose anything. These wicked wenches merely cast an illusion on them. They never cared about them, and as soon as the benefit of the relationship was diminished, they broke them. These open and virtueless women are snares. Their words are poison. Their hands, chain-strong men, like Delilah did to Samson. So my brothers, avoid these wretched women. If you wish to support the Red Pill Church of Chronic and wish to support this warband, this mission, this goal, please kindly consider donating to paypal.me/The Undead Chronic. It's been Pastor Chronic, guys. Stay blessed and keep the Western slores out of your life.